One of the things that we always did when I was very young, my dad worked late nights. He actually was the manager of a billiards parlor, which was called a pool hall back in the day. So he often didn't get home till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. He had been diagnosed with a terminal heart condition, and we only expected him to live for about 5 years at the point when I was born. So my mom, in her level of creativity and wanting to create this family environment, would wake me up when Dad got home from work at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and we would do all the things that dads and kids do when Dad gets home from work. We would play on the swing set out in the backyard. We would eat breakfast. You know, Mom would cook French toast or make oatmeal or things like that. We built snowmen if there was snow outside to do that. We had play dates, we just had them in the wee hours of the morning. And one of the things that was the signal that it was time to do that was Mom would make coffee when Dad came home, and I would smell the coffee, and the smell of the coffee would wake me up. So we would get together and we would play these games. One morning I smelled the coffee. I'm excited. I get up. I go into the kitchen, and Dad's not there. There are 2 mugs on the table, no lights on in the room, just a little beam of moonlight coming in through the window. And there's a mug of coffee at Mom's spot, and she's sitting there. And there's a mug of coffee at the spot where I sit at the table. And I'm 4 years old. I don't drink coffee. I've never drunk coffee. I don't like coffee. I am not interested in this at all. But I also understood what that meant, knowing that my dad had been sick and that he recently had been in the hospital. I knew that that meant that he had gone home. So Mom and I sat, and I drank the coffee. And she had doctored it up a little bit for me. She put some cocoa in it and probably way more sugar than I should have had at that hour of the morning. And she had doctored hers up a little bit too, but I don't think it was cocoa, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't sugar that was doctoring her particular mug of coffee at that time. And we talked until the sun came up, and that was how I learned, A, that my father had gone home to be with the Lord, and B, what that meant for us and the rest of our lives. And I didn't remember, there's a lot I don't remember about that particular event because I was 4. But I remember that it was the first time that I ever drank coffee. I remember that I hated the taste of it. And I remember that as soon as Mom let me down out of the chair, I ran to the bathroom and brushed my teeth immediately. And even though I have learned to like the taste of coffee and I now drink it on a regular basis, I still brush my teeth immediately after I finish drinking coffee. And no matter how tired I am or how long it's been, how far away I am from the kitchen, when I smell coffee, I wake up.
This is my life story. My biological mom got pregnant with me while she was taking Accutane. And Accutane is very dangerous because it can cause the fetus to have a missing limb, have limbs that are miniature, and stuff like that. Well, when she was 7 months pregnant, she got hit by a truck. And when she did that, she went into labor. They used medicine to stop the labor. However, the doctors said that when she was going to have the baby, I would be dead. Well, when I was born alive, of course. And the doctors say, well, he's alive. And the next step is hopefully he survives for 6 months. And after 6 months, we'll reevaluate and see what happens. After past 6 months, they said, well, he won't make it to a year. And during the first 6 months of my life, my parents would have to rock me in a chair because I would forget to breathe. And they would have to do that all night. I remember my dad telling me that one day he just couldn't do it. He said, God, he is yours. He is yours. Take him if you want him. But heal my son. And after a year had passed of that breathing problem during the nights. I started getting stronger, and the doctors said that I would have very severe disabilities, like extreme autism, stuff like that. And I was homeschooled. The doctors continued to say I wouldn't be able to talk or walk. And I believe it's by the grace of God and the fact that my dad gave me, that my dad dedicated me to him. And that's why I believe I'm here today alive. And as far as the Accutane goes, I have a small ear. And that's the reason for the Accutane. The only other symptom I might have is a slight social disorder called Asperger's syndrome. But the longer I live, the more I become aware of what's happening and the more I can adjust. Thank you for listening to me. And remember, if you come across an obstacle, give it to God and see what happens.
When Alicia was born, we automatically knew something wasn't right about her. She only had one ear, she only had 4 fingers on each hand, and she was very, very small. A week after she was born, the doctors diagnosed her with Fanconi anemia. This is a very rare disease, and only less than 1,000 people in the world have it. So, me being very curious with medical and health stuff, I researched this, and I found out that all the FA patients develop leukemia, and they're going to have to get a bone marrow transplant sometime in their life. Also, I found out that most of them do not live past 30. So growing up, me and Alicia were best friends. I was always at her house. I decorated her room. I loved doing her hair. Me and my little cousin became so close that she would only let me hold her at family functions, and she would always refer to me as her best cousin ever, which made all the other cousins jealous. This bond we had, though, was cut short when Alicia was 8 and she was sent to the Cincinnati Children's Hospital to get her bone marrow transplant. This devastated me, and I was even more heartbroken to know that she'd be in there for more than a year. I convinced my mom, though, to take me there to see her, not once but twice, and I even rode an airplane both times, which was my biggest fear. But I would do anything to get to my best friend. So when we went to Cincinnati, we stayed in the Ronald McDonald House, where we got free meals, free haircuts, we got luxury rooms, we got a free rental car both times, and we stayed there for a week. And even when I wasn't there in Ohio, I talked to Alicia every day. She always called me at 4 a.m. when the doctors were in there poking her with needles, and I made sure I called her every morning to tell her good morning. After her bone marrow transplant, Alicia developed leukemia, and there was one phone call I specifically remember when she told me that she had lost all of her hair from the chemo and that she looked like a boy, and she said she was sad that I couldn't do her hair anymore. When Alicia returned home, she was on strict watch, she didn't have any immune system, and she was forced to wear a mask everywhere she went. And her mom wouldn't really let anybody around her besides me. For a while, years, she lived a pretty normal life, besides the attention and looks she got from kids and people who just thought she looked different. I remember her attitude was always feisty and bossy, and I can pretty much say that's because we gave her everything she wanted, including 2 trips to Disneyland. So when Alicia was 12, she was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer, and the doctors only gave her months to live. Her story was soon shared on the news, and her school had many fundraisers to support her, and pretty soon all her medical costs and her anticipated funeral costs were paid in full. Alicia soon lost her ability to walk, and she was on strict bed rest, and we couldn't get her to wake up. And the doctors then gave her days to live, and that's when the hospice people came in to her home. In March of 2015, Alicia passed away in her bed, and I even went to visit her the night before, which I'm very thankful for. And I had a conversation with her, even though she wasn't able to talk. I told her that I didn't want her to be scared, and I told her that everything was going to be okay, even though I knew that it wasn't going to be. Even though she wasn't able to talk, her last words to me was that she loved me. Her funeral was huge, just because Alicia touched so many people, and I was blessed to be able to sing at her funeral. Her last wishes, I remember, was that she wanted to meet Beyonce and Katy Perry, and my family attempted to make that happen. Even though it didn't happen because her life was cut so short, we got Katy Perry to send her an autographed album and a t-shirt, which we have, and Beyonce sent a bouquet of flowers, and we had those on stage at her funeral. So, although her life was cut short, Alicia inspired me, and I pretty much live in her shadows and in her remembrance. And I even got a tattoo on my arm to inspire me that even though God throws obstacles at me constantly, He also gives me the strength and the people and support to help me get through it every day.
My name is Micah Raber, and I will be talking about the story of the car crash. When I was 10 years old, I was in a vehicle accident. My family, we just lived right off the highway, and my mother was driving, and I had a friend. We were in the back seat of a small Honda Accord, like 87, and we were stopped, going to turn left because we lived right off the highway, and we were in a little bit of a dip in the road, and there was a vehicle behind us, a large truck, and he didn't see us, and he hit us going about 65, 70 miles an hour. Paramedics came. My friend and I were life-flighted to Akron Children's Hospital, and when the paramedics got there, I actually found out that they didn't expect anyone to be alive because of the condition of the vehicle. But I was there at the hospital for about 4 days. No one sustained any major injuries except I did fracture my left orbital. So I have a scar right above my left eye, and that, I guess you could call it my eyebrow bone, started to shift down. It started to, come down over my eye, and they said, we need to fix this guy. So they decided 2 weeks after I had gotten home from the hospital the first time that I needed to have surgery. So I returned, had a surgery on a Saturday morning, and then went back home. I think it was either Sunday or Monday morning, and now I have a lovely scar that runs from just above my right ear, zigzags, goes across the top of my head, and zigzags right next to my left ear. So that is the story of the car crash. Thank you.
I was working for a harvest crew out of Tampa, Kansas. I was driving truck. Yeah, I know that might sound weird, driving truck. I was only 17. I know you're supposed to be 18 to get a CDL. I didn't have a CDL. I grew up on a farm, so therefore that was normal for me to be doing things underage. But here I was driving truck. I knew I was overweight. I was legal at 95,000 for the type of equipment I was operating, and I was operating on a 20-ton road though, so that put us way overweight. What I was running, I was approximately about 40 tons overweight, and I was happily meandering myself along on a bright sunshiny day, and suddenly I see these cherries and blueberries behind me that made me become frightful, you might say, because of the fact that it was the police behind me, and I had no idea. Here I was, underage, overweight, and I figured my life was over. As the officer came up to my window, I opened the door and I stepped down off the big truck I was driving and handed him my license. I just acted like there was nothing wrong. But in reality, I knew inside there was a lot of things wrong. But he went back to his car, and a few minutes later came back and said, all right, well, I just want to let you know not to drive on this road. So I climbed back in my truck and I drove off, thinking that there must have been somebody looking out for me that day. And let's just say I didn't go down that road again.
October 4th, 2004, when I started playing basketball. My first game. It had been a really foreign experience to me because I was always at the park or the playground, playing pickup rather than playing in an organized game. And, it was a really cool experience for me. And this was actually the day that I got my first basket, and it felt exhilarating. I didn't know how to feel. It was just like overwhelming with the crowd cheering and stuff like that. And I felt really good. It made me feel really good. Ever since then, I fell in love with the game of basketball. Grew up with it. You see, I was one of those type of kids that was like, ball is life, ball is life. Screaming it in the hallways and stuff at school, and people knew me as a basketball player growing up. But as I grew up, I realized that there's more to life than just basketball, and although that it has taken me to so many exhilarating places, and I've met so many interesting people, and I've learned so many things about life itself. There's a little bit more to it than just basketball, because you're gonna have to put the ball down someday. I look at basketball as an avenue rather than a lifestyle. Although I do love the game a lot.
So when I was 5 years old, 5 to 6, my family went on this cruise / ferry. It wasn't really a cruise. And it was like based in France, so everyone on the ferry spoke French. And I didn't, so that's that. And one day my sisters and I started running around and checking everything out, and we were at a junction of a Y, and they both chose a side and said, I'm gonna go this way, you're gonna go this way, and we'll see who gets to our room first. So they both run off, leaving me behind, and I'm confused and scared, and then I realize I have to pick which one to go in, so I run after one sister, and I'm going, okay, that's not the way, go back, trying to figure out. Pretty much I get lost, and I stay in a corner, and I cry until these French boys come up, and they're speaking French, hey, I'm guessing it was hi, do you need help, how are you, what's your name? And all I could say was bonjour, in a terrible accent. And so then they picked me up, that was weird, and they carried me to the where the captain was, the front of the boat, and they gave me to a man in higher authority, and he sat me up and gave me a little pamphlet to read because I was crying, and then he went over the loudspeaker and was like, there is a little white girl with brown hair, curly brown hair, and brown eyes, and she is lost. Please come get her. And then I think an hour later, my parents got me.
Oh, good morning. This is Carl from the business office. I want to tell a little story from back when I was in college in the 1970s. I attended Eastern Mennonite College, now University, and had the pleasure of being friends with some Kaufmans from Glendive, Montana. They attended the college and developed a tradition of long road trips back to Montana over the holidays with friends and family. I love driving, and our family took trips all over the country when we were young. I am so thankful for the gift of experiencing places and people on the road. Linford Kaufman was a big 6-foot, 250-pound guy, a bear, a friend to everyone. Linford had an old Chevy pickup with a topper that was the favorite mode of transportation for those trips home. Along with 5 friends, I was invited on one Thanksgiving trek departing Harrisonburg for the 33-hour journey, driving straight through while trading drivers. Linford explicitly informed each driver to check the gas and fill up the oil whenever we needed fuel. We left school pre-Thanksgiving along with Pam, his sister, her pet squirrel. Pet squirrel was named Leatherberry. The squirrel was young and energetic. Its favorite activity was to make wild NASCAR rounds within the cab of the pickup, tearing around in eye-popping circles across the seat tops, hovering nearly vertically around the windows, then scurrying preposterously fast across the front dashboard before repeating the circuit again and again. Our first event occurred about 100 miles in. We lost a headlight. These were various glitches. We ended up in early morning in Indiana. No one is quite sure about cause and effect, but there is some suspicion that the oil did not get filled. Northwest Indiana, a terrible sound. The truck meanders. What to do with a truck full of college students in freezing temperatures? In the age before cell phones, a miracle. It turns out we were within 10 miles of their uncle, who just happened to be an expert mechanic. So we enjoy Thanksgiving dinner, and he and Linford go to the local salvage yard, where I can still remember seeing an old cop car engine hoisted by cable, swinging perilously and dropping onto their truck to be taken back to the shop. Within a very short time, this engine is installed as a replacement in his old pickup truck, and we are on the way. Now to Bismarck, North Dakota, blitzing cold. The transmission goes out. We are close enough to the home destination, so someone comes and literally pulls us into the next town. We end up playing cards at a car dealership while a new transmission gets put in. In what seems like a totally amazing story, we are able to complete our trek to Montana, enjoy a few hours there before hitting the road back to Virginia. No problems at all on the return trip. Including the engine and transmission, we also experienced a total of 11 other minor mechanical and electrical inconveniences. This trip taught me a lot about agility, patience, enjoying the journey despite frustrations. Friendships were enhanced, and we met so many gracious and capable people who we would never have been touched by had these things not happened. Enjoy the journey.
I spent a year in northern Sweden in between my sophomore and junior year of college. And one of the things that I was able to participate in was a reindeer separation. The native people of northern Scandinavia are called the Sami people, and they herd reindeer. And for most of the year, these reindeer just kind of wander the wilderness, eating and just hanging out, being reindeer. But during the winter, they need to be rounded up and taken back to their owners' farms so they don't get lost and die in the middle of winter. So it was actually around this time of year, late November, early December, 7 years ago, when I was in Sweden, that I was asked if I wanted to be a part of this reindeer separation. So we bundled up in many, many, many layers because it was about negative 30 degrees that entire day that we were out there. And we drove out to where the reindeer were. Now the reindeer owners, they construct a temporary pen kind of in the middle of nowhere. And it's almost shaped like a sun. There's a center pen that's circular shaped. And then they have chutes pointing out almost like rays of the sun. And then at the end of the chute, there's a trailer that the reindeer get herded into to get taken back to their barns. Now, using snowmobiles and dogs, they herd about 100 or so reindeer into that center pen at a time. And just to keep it in context, there are literally thousands of reindeer. So this takes all day. But they herd about 100 or so into that center pen, and then once the reindeer are in that circle, they kind of run around the perimeter of the circle, and all of the reindeer owners stand in the center. And how they identify their reindeer is pretty cool. When the reindeer are babies, they take a little knife and they kind of etch their own personal symbol or sign into the inside of their ear. And then, so it kind of scars over and becomes kind of a raised bump. So then when they are running around, they can kind of reach in and feel on the inside of their ear, and they can feel their symbol, and that's how they know which one is which. So then once the owner has found one of their reindeer, they drag it by the antlers to the opening of the chute and then hand it off to the person who makes sure it gets into the trailer. And that was my job during this whole part. Now, just to also put it into context a little bit, a full-grown reindeer is about the size of a calf, but they're a lot more feisty and fast, and they have antlers. And they don't particularly want to get into the trailer. So they fight a little bit. My job was to wait at the opening of the chute to take the reindeer off and get it into the trailer. Myself and another girl did this together. They're a little bit too strong for us to handle individually, so I took one antler and she took the other antler, and that was kind of our system. And it worked pretty good until one particular time where she let go of her antler because she went to try and go get the latch, which was being stubborn, the latch on the gate. And so as soon as the reindeer felt her grip release, the reindeer started to swing its head to try to get me off so that it could run away. And all of this happened in a blink of a second. It happened so quickly, but I remember thinking, as I felt this reindeer throwing its head, I was like, I am not going to be the American who let this reindeer get away and then everyone laugh at me. And so I reached over with my spare hand to grab the other antler that she let go of, and I threw the antler to the ground, I threw the reindeer to the ground on its side. And once I got it down, it started to fight a little bit more. And so in order to keep it from getting away, I turned around and just sat on it until until my friend could come and help me with it. And so what I was trying to avoid was people laughing at me because I let it go. But what actually happened was people laughed at me because I was the American who tackled a reindeer and then sat on it. So that is my story.
So it was Spirit Week at school. And I was in second grade, and they had different days. There was Pirate Day, Cowboy Day, Character Day, the regular things. And so it was Thursday night, and my mom and my aunt were making me a pirate outfit. And so, it was Pirate Day, and I wasn't totally sure that it was actually going to be Pirate Day the next day. And my mom was getting mad at me. She was like, Janelle, I made you this outfit, and you're going to wear it, blah, 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 whatever. And so I wore the pirate outfit to school the next day. Surprise! It wasn't Pirate Day. It was nothing day. There was nothing going on that day. And I was so mad. So, there I am in my little eye patch and, torn up black capri pants or and my striped shirt, and I'm walking around and nobody else is dressed up they're in their regular school uniforms, and I got so mad. I was so embarrassed. So I tried to tuck in my little pants to my socks, and I took off my eye patch, and my teachers were confused. They're like, Janelle, why are you dressed up as a pirate? I was like, because I thought it was Pirate Day. So I started crying and stuff, and it was bad. So I never dress up anymore for costume days. I'm even hesitant for Halloween.
Of your love's like the warmth from the sun, and this will be our year, took a long time to come. The warmth of your love's like the warmth from the sun, and this will be our year, took a long time to come. Don't let go of my hand now, the darkness has gone. This will be our year, took a long time to come. Don't let go of my hand now, the darkness has gone. This will be our year, took a long time to come. And I won't forget the way you helped me up when I was down. And I won't forget the way you said, darling, I love you, you gave me faith to go. I won't forget the way you helped me up when I was down. And I won't forget the way you said, Darling, I love you. You gave me faith to go on. Now we're there, and we've only just begun. This will be our year. Took a long time to come. Oh, now we're there, and we've only just begun. This will be our year. Took a long time to come. Of your smile, smile for me, little one, and this will be our year. Took a long time to come. You don't of your smile, smile.